Welcome everybody to part 2 of our introduction to Christian theology. So glad that you've come and to share with me in these great thoughts that clear the way for grasping well the truths of God. You know, the important thing when you catch a ball is to position yourself well to catch a ball. Before the ball's in the air, you're going to catch it well. Is to get in position first, to get well established and keep your eye on the ball and all that preparation. So this is what we're doing. Before we look at the ball, who is God, who is Jesus, all the great facts of our faith, we need to position ourselves well. And it's a good percentage, isn't it? To position yourself well to do something is like 30% of having a good catch. And this is what we're doing. So it's part 2, and if you have a Bible, I'd like to read 1 Timothy chapter 3. 1 Timothy chapter 3 from verse 14. 1 Timothy chapter 3 from verse 14 to verse 16. And we have been remembering this week the ascension of Jesus Christ, the great fact that we confess of our faith that Jesus is now ascended at the right hand of God the Father, that we have our elder brother at the right hand of our Father interceding for us, and this is a great fact of our faith. 1 Timothy 3:14, reading from the English Standard Version. Paul writes to Timothy, "I hope to come to you soon, but I'm writing these things to you so that if I delay, you might know how one ought to conduct himself in the household of God, which is the church of the living God, a pillar and buttress of the truth. Great indeed, we confess, is the mystery of godliness. He was manifested in the flesh, vindicated by the Spirit, seen by angels, proclaimed among the nations, believed on in the world, and taken up in glory." Let's pray. We do pray, Heavenly Father, as we go on looking at the importance of having a renewed mind and in thinking clearly and truthfully. We ask for your help in this endeavor, for it's more than us doing our best. It is a dependence upon your Spirit in submission to your word and in prayer. And so we pray that you would speak to us tonight and that we would be able to position ourselves and our minds clearly and well for grasping the wonderful mysteries and truths of the Christian faith. Thank you for the great faith we confess. Show us more of its glory and how we can grasp it and run with it in our time and life. For Jesus' sake. Amen. This is a great truth here, that the church is a pillar and buttress of truth. The church is a pillar and buttress of truth. In other words, part of our identity and our calling as Christians is to, and our witness to the world, is to be a place that supports and establishes what is true, the truth about God and the truth in general. And then he goes on to talk about some of these, the great facts of our faith, verse 16 of 1 Timothy chapter 3, which we looked at last week. Remember, the great facts of faith that we put our trust in. And these are all about the Lord Jesus Christ. I mentioned the scripture that we would think of the importance of doing what we're doing tonight, that we are a place where truth is to be upheld and witnessed to and supported. And if we as Christians in the church crumble on the truth, then there's no truth anywhere really for people to grasp. Paul says the church of the living God is a pillar and support of the truth. Now, what I want to do this evening is to continue with looking at our introduction to theology and we're going to give some terms of definition, because this is very important when you enter into any subject with somebody. If you want to think sharply and well about any subject, it's very important to define your terms, to know what you are speaking about. Because if you don't define your terms, there'll be confusion later down the road. We'll all be thinking we're talking about the same thing, but we haven't defined our terms. So I want us to have a look at theology, what theology is. There are going to be three things: theology and belief, and doctrine and beliefs. These are the three things, and I'm going to put these notes, they will be available, but we're going to be thinking about what theology is, what doctrine is, and what beliefs are. And these are important concepts to be able to grasp, and I think if we clarify this, it'll be very important. Firstly, what we call the etymology of a word, that is the roots of a word. The word theology is a compound word, a Greek word made out of theos and logos. Theology. So when we talk about theology, theos is the Greek word for God, and logos is the Greek word for a thing or a matter or a word. A word, a topic, a matter, a saying. It's a very broad term. So when we talk about theology, we're talking about the things, the words, the things about God. Theology. The things about God. In the whole structure of theology, people sometimes talk about theology proper, and theology proper is what we'll look at the doctrine of God. Theology, particularly looking at who God is and the characteristics of God. But I'm going to use the term theology in a much broader term, as about the truth about God and anything that's related to Him, which is, of course, everything, to a certain degree, includes everything. So I said this morning that we all have a theology. Everybody. You can't escape having a theology. You are all sort of theologians. You have ideas about who God is, and if somebody had to come and ask you something, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? What do you think about the return of Jesus? Or what do you think about the origins of the world? You would probably give some sort of answer. We all have a theology. We are all theologians. The question is whether we are good in our theology or whether we are poor. And this course is designed to improve on that. Let's first look at what I want to call the lowercase word theology, and then the uppercase word, or upper level of theology. So let's first look at it with a small t, what theology is with a small t, and what theology is with a capital T. So theology with the small t is any human idea about a divine being or beings and things relative to him or them, whether true or false. In its most broadest definition, theology is any idea about God, whether it's right or wrong, whether it's Christian or non-Christian. It's something that you have in your mind about a divine being, whether that is true or false, whatever the content is that. That's theology with a small t. It is what we can call a descriptive, excuse the handwriting, descriptive theology is just describing what people believe about things. And if we had to ask everybody's opinion here about something, we would just describe people's theology descriptively. Tell me what your theology is. This is at the really one end of the spectrum. Very, very broad, very, very general about what people believe. And somewhere on the spectrum of truth and error, everybody's somewhere in their theology. Somewhere on the spectrum of truth and error. But it's what we've got in our minds now. That's our theology, our operational theology. And it's just describing what's a fact in our mind. Then I want to get what I call uppercase theology. And this is really the ideal of what I want to be looking at this evening. And this is the term theology with a capital T. I'm going to use that to express the idea of the truth about God, the truth about all the truth that there is about God and who He is on any topic. The truth about God and our knowledge of that truth, which we derive from His revelation. And this, with a capital T, we can call prescriptive. See, I told you you would have to dust off the cobwebs a bit this evening in our minds. Excuse the slanted handwriting, but as long as you can make sense of it. That's prescriptive. Theology with a capital T is what we ought to believe about God. Not just describing what we do believe, but the truth about God, true knowledge of who He is and all the things that relate to Him. And it's prescriptive. We get the word prescribe something. It's something that you have to prescribe textbook. You have to do that. And so ideally, when I'm talking about theology with a capital T, it's not just what we think, it's what we ought to think. And we're going to look at this whole thing of truth, that there is such a thing of truth, and this is what theology is all about, of what we ought to believe. One of the objects of this course, and in general in Christian thinking, is to get your T to grow. You with me? So that the small T would grow up to become a big T, or as close as possible. That your ideas in your mind, your theology, would get closer to what is true and what is descriptively so. So that we describe your theology as actually what we should prescribe to everybody, what you believe. This is growing up in the renewal of our minds, that what we think becomes right and becomes in line with the truth. So let's do a quick experiment. We can all stand up and all close your eyes. Can you all close your eyes? And don't peep. And what I want you to do now is to indicate, just an experiment, indicate where you think north is. All right, you can all point there where you think north is. All right. Okay, now, no, you might close your eyes, please. Some of you are peeping. And you've said, all right, now you can open your eyes. Some of you, pretty good, most of you. Some of you were pointing to me back there. There we go, Ivan. You were pointing that direction. That's good. Your wife was pushing her hand down. Thanks, you may be seated. So, most of you were far better when I've done this before in a class. It's been very interesting. I should have seen West or something like that, because everybody thinks, you see, they're on the same page, they know where it is. But when you start to ask them to do it, it's interesting. So you're describing where you think just what's in your mind. That's the lowercase theology, just what you think. But there's actually a truth, what you should be pointing to. I think it's somewhere over there. You see, then you can start a debate about exactly who's right. And how do you determine where the truth is on the matter? That's the truth. See, that's the truth. So, in our theology, it's exactly the same. We have some sort of idea of it. Some of us need more fine-tuning than others. Some of you need a lot of help. You have to trust your theology. But what we all believe there is a true north, isn't there? There's the magnetic north, but there is the truth. and we are all trying to get closer. We are trying to let our small t approximate really what is the real thing. So this is generally, we're going to be talking about theology with a capital T, about the truth about God. The idea is that our own theology becomes closer and closer with the facts of God himself. So let me give you a definition, if we have to just do that quickly, of Christian theology. And the adjective Christian theology is an important thing, because it's not Jewish theology or Muslim theology or anything like that. We are looking at Christian theology in the light of Jesus Christ and the coming and the revelation that's related to him. This is the truth that we are pursuing as Christians. It's particularly Christian theology. In its most briefest form, we could say theology is knowledge about God. So it's knowledge about God. And you could call that a science, because that's the old Latin word for knowledge. It's knowledge about God. That's what theology is. It's a science about God. That's the most distilled definition that we can get about theology. And we could say, of course, as things relating to God, his creation, salvation, but essentially it's knowledge about God. Here's my expanded definition, and see if you like this. Theology is the rational. It's rational because it is something we use with our mind. Expression, you've got to express something, say something, of the truth about God, and we can say, and all things related to him. You can see I use my own font, as they say. So theology is the rational expression of the truth about God, the truth about him. And this is going to be very important words, and all things that are relative to him. This is what we are endeavoring to do, and is a good definition for what we are trying to do in this course. It's going to be rational. You're going to have to use your mind to be mature in your thinking, as Paul says. Be babes in your innocence, but in your mind be mature. It is a reasoned expression of the truth of God and anything else that is relative to him. So this is highly important, of course, because what we ultimately believe about God, as A.W. Tozer said, reveals the most important things about your life. What you reveal about God, who you think he is, and how you think he relates to you, and all the facts about God, it determines the outcome of your life. It determines your eternal destiny. What we believe as Christians in our theology and how we follow through on that. Then let me go on to doctrine. What is doctrine? So that's Christian theology, is the science of God. It expresses certain rational truths about God. And now of the word also of doctrine. Is there a difference? Well, yes, there is. We can take that as theology, and we can take that circle within a circle as doctrine. Different sizes, doctrine. Now, in other words, all doctrine is theology, but not all theology is doctrine. Do that. This is what the circles do, if you use them to explain an idea. So what is doctrine? When we speak, let me read, when we speak about doctrine, we are referring to those main topics and affirmations of theology that make up a vital confession or belief system of a Christian. So your doctrine are those aspects of theology that are highly important and operate within our essential belief system as Christians, things that are high-ranking truth. This is generally what we talk about doctrine, and generally what Christian churches have when they put down their statements of faith, or when they're writing down what they believe. It's generally, you're going to be talking about your doctrine, that aspect of theology which deals with important aspects of Christian theology that we confess and which are vital for Christians to hold, sort of high order theology in our doctrine. I think, for example, the doctrine of matters such as the nature of eldership in the church, or the nature of communion, how frequent we have communion in the church, aspects about that, they don't sort of rank as high importance as the doctrine of what communion is, or the doctrine of the creation, or the doctrine of the cross. There are lesser doctrines, and there are ones that are not as important. These generally fall outside the category of doctrine. You might also get the word dogmatics. Doesn't it just get you going? Dogmatics. Imagine your son or daughter is going to sort of now be studying, and they talk about what they want to study. I want to study dogmatics. Sounds rather, want to do something else. It sounds very dry and dusty and boring, doesn't it, to study dogmatics? But in the history of Christian theology, dogmatics has been an important word. It comes from the word dechomai, which means the truths that have been received. Very similar to doctrine. But dogmatics is normally the study of what the church has believed in the matters of doctrine throughout its life. The study of dogmatics, the truths that the church has confessed, and the research and the study about that has normally been dogmatic. Ria, there you go, you asked me for an Afrikaans word. Or dogmatics. Very important word, actually. It's going to show that what Christians believe is not just irrelevant, optional thing. It's dogma. It's important, solid, rock-like truth that is essential for our life as Christians. And then the last one I want us to look at in terms of this, the definition, is the interesting word beliefs. So we've had theology, and where's that pen? Here we are. Let's have a look at the word beliefs. What do we mean when we talk about beliefs? Now, in order to understand beliefs, to think a little bit about this word beliefs, we have to think about three things. These are very, very important. Reality and truth and belief. Reality and truth and belief. And how these relate to one another. And here we need to think about this. The reality of something, the truth of something, and then our belief about something. They're very important aspects to what we look at in looking at any course on theology. So, well, let's firstly have a look at reality. Praise God that it's the reality that saves us as Christians. It's the hard facts of our faith. The real stuff that happened in history, the truth of things. That is what's behind our salvation. The death of Jesus on the cross in history. His ascension. His gift of the Spirit. The reality of God's love. Not just the truth about it and our belief about it, but the reality of it. To understand this fact of objective reality is to mature in your Christian life more and more. Because the more your faith latches onto objective truth, not just things inside yourself. Objective is outside and subjective is in yourself. But the more our faith goes outside of ourselves into the great truths of our faith, the more we will have peace, assurance, the more we will grow, the more the roots of your life can actually settle into something and not be just entangling around your own emotions and your own thoughts. It's the reality of something which is at the heart of the most important thing in our Christian faith. And remember my illustration about going across that ice. I told that illustration. A person who went across that walked up, and he wasn't sure if that ice lake was able to hold him. And then this massive bus just went past with tourists, and he felt rather embarrassed on his all fours there. But when we're talking about the reality is actually, in that illustration, how thick that ice is and the fact of it. The fact of it. This is what we're talking about when we're looking at reality. So when we're looking at Jesus, we're looking at the great reality of his resurrection. Before we get to the truth about that and our belief about that, there is a difference. We've got to realize there is a reality there. Either Jesus didn't rise from the dead or he did. Regardless of ourselves, that's the fact in history. That is the fact outside of ourselves. And reality is this great objective, hardcore fact, these statements of our faith. So we all understand what we're talking about reality. So, for example, if I had to say something like there is a cheeseburger on the counter in the kitchen there, with a nice cheeseburger there. Whether that's true or not, my statement might be nice, or whether you believe it or not is another thing. But either it's there or it's not there. That's the fact about that statement of mine. There's either there right now something or there isn't. That's the fact, the res in Latin, the thing itself. And this is the center of gravity for our faith. Now the next is the truth, or the veritas of a matter. The truth, the reality of something, and the truth. And that's the res in Latin, don't know it in Ria and Afrikaans, and the veritas. Isn't veritas a nice word? It's a nice word, veritas. It means the truth of something. Now, here's important. What do we mean by truth? Let me give you one of the most important statements, actually, of definition in this course. And this is about truth. When we speak about truth, we speak about statements that correspond to reality. Isn't that great? That's what we mean by truth, Pilate. Remember, he asked Jesus, what is truth? Truth, and this is in philosophy, it's called the correspondence definition of truth. And you cannot deny this. This is a fact. If you deny it, you can't deny this. But truth, by common consent, is a statement. Truth is some sort of statement that corresponds to reality, or not. Or that would be a lie if it didn't. So going back to my cheeseburger there, if there's nothing there, I would make a true statement if I said there is no cheeseburger on the counter in the Turvey Hall. And you could go there now and check, and you will say Paul was speaking the truth. But if I said there is a cheeseburger there and you went and you didn't see it, you'd say Paul is not speaking the truth, because what he says doesn't correspond to reality. The correspondence definition of truth. This is an essential thing. There's so much to say about this thing about truth, that express its statements that express the state of affairs. It expresses what things are like. They're facts. In other words, they're statements that say what is, and what isn't. What is. Now I'm saying there is and what isn't. That's what truth is about. A lie is saying what isn't, and isn't is. You with me? That's a lie. If I said I'm saying something that is but it isn't, that's what a lie is all about. This is truth. The grass is green because the grass is green. I'm saying the grass is green. How do you know it's a statement that's true? Because the grass is green. It's the correspondence theory of truth. It fits the facts. It's statements that fit the facts. This is so important, isn't it? And in our modern world today, this is oh, well, that's just your perspective.
Your truth.
That's your truth. We'll have a look at one's answer to that. So, if we say Jesus rose from the dead, that statement is either true or false based on how it corresponds to reality. It means nothing in itself unless it's an echo of the facts of Jesus' resurrection. So these two go closely together. And it is very important that in the matter of theology, going back to the definition, theology is statements about the truth about God. In other words, what we are saying and expressing is pointers to what is a fact, what is real. It's not just opinions or sentiments or my truth or how I want things to be. Now, let's go on to the next one, is beliefs. Beliefs. What's the Latin for that? Your credo. Isn't that also a nice word? Credo is what your credo or your creed is what you believe. Now, immediately we know you could believe many things. Actually, everybody's got different beliefs. So here's what beliefs are. They're expressions of your personal understanding about reality. They're expressions of your personal understanding about reality that you accept as true. Beliefs are personal expressions about reality that you accept as true. So going back to my cheeseburger, without going in there and having a look, what do you believe? If I say to you, what do you believe? Do you believe there's a cheeseburger there or not? Well, you might, no, I don't. Yes, there might be. That's your belief. It's what you believe. You need to check it out, though, so that your belief is based on fact. But a belief is essentially your take, your interpretation of reality, of something that you believe is true, whether it is actually true or not. That's the catch. But it's something that you believe is so. For example, the Stormers are the best rugby team in South Africa. That's a belief. We have all these sort of beliefs. Or I'll explain to you some more just now. What you think about the future of South Africa? Why are we in this problem in our country? It's of Eskom. It's your belief. It's how you understand the reality based on your belief on what's true. But it's your belief. And most beliefs are really what you think is true. This is the great thing. When your beliefs match the truth, then you can be certain. When your belief matches the truth, then you are right, and then you can be certain about something. It's a marriage made in heaven. When your belief actually matches the truth, it's a wonderful thing. When you believe that Jesus did rise from the dead, and you believe that, and it does match the truth, that's a powerful thing. That's what we call certainty. That's what you call certainty. You can have certainty because your belief is truthful and matches the truth. And Christian belief is actually the belief about truth. You can actually remove that because all truth to be truth is about reality. But Christian belief is fundamentally what we are founded on, is the truth. But a lot of other people believe things which are not necessarily true. Let me just give you this quickly, and you can read it at a later, just for your interest. There are different categories of beliefs. There are beliefs that are based on authority. If you look at why do you believe certain things, if you implicitly believe me as an authority, then you will believe there's a cheeseburger there, because Paul said so. You don't have to go and check for yourself. You know he's trustworthy, he wouldn't lie, etc. And he's a pastor. It's a position of authority. So there are beliefs based on authority. I think with the alien vegetation, in Royals we've got the Felicias growing there. The authorities say, look, you need to pull these things out because they're slowly taking over Royals. Lovely flowers, but I haven't checked out what they said, if it's this lady or people say it's true, but I take it as an authority. And for us, this is the category why we believe the Bible. It's a belief based on an authority. But there are beliefs based on authority, there are beliefs based on experience. And you can go and check if there's a cheeseburger there. You go yourself, you have a look, you say, I believe there's no cheese because I've seen it. It's a belief based on experience. And so with those with the Felicias in Royals, you say, yeah, I've seen, because if you leave them unchecked, they just take over. Doesn't matter what the authorities say, I've seen it for myself. It's a belief based on experience. Beliefs are based on authority. Beliefs can be based on experience. Beliefs can be based on what philosophers and what is true calls pure reason. Beliefs based on pure reason. These are fundamental universal beliefs, such as the belief in cause and effect. Hopefully you believe that idea. For every effect there's a cause. The idea of cause and effect is something in our minds. You can't prove that. It's something that is just an innate idea. In a sense, the innate ideas of how you are feeling. If you're feeling tired now, that's an idea in your mind. You can't sort of prove it to me. That's an innate. You don't have to prove to yourself that you're tired, or prove to me. It's an innate idea. And there are truths that we get from pure reason. Then there are, lastly, of course, beliefs that are non-rational. That's always the problematic one. These are personal beliefs and tendencies that are not taken up on a reasonable basis. Prejudices, romance, racism, support for the Stormers, as I put it in here. The belief on the guilt or innocence of things. With the Oscar Pistorius issue, when it first came out, you probably had some sort of he's guilty. You have this automatic sometimes this prejudicial feeling about something or about a person, about a belief. And what's the future of South Africa going to be like in terms of its power? That tends to be based on an irrational, it's not based on a rational basis. So we have beliefs that are like this. So to sum these up, these three things, let me just give you an illustration, which I think is helpful. If you know your Bibles, just come with me for a moment in the story of the life of Joseph. In the time, if we go back to Beersheba, where was Jacob living in Beersheba? Probably with his 11 sons. And they were there for those years when Joseph, remember, was in Egypt now. He'd just become prime minister, just at the beginning of the 7 years of plenty. He's just become prime minister, and his family and Jacob is back in Beersheba. Now let me use this as a little bit of an illustration. There were many beliefs back home about what happened to Joseph, weren't there? Many beliefs. One of the saddest beliefs was the belief of Jacob at that time. You ask Jacob for what does he think about Joseph, happened to Joseph. It's his belief. What he thinks is, as I said, remember, a belief is what you take as true, whether it's true or not, but it's what you think, your interpretation. So if you go to Joseph, that's the sad thing about Joseph for all those years. He believed his son was dead. Sorry, Jacob. Thank you. Jacob. Jacob believed that Joseph was dead. And other people, neighbors and friends, they had their own views. And you could ask all of his sons, what's Joseph doing now? Well, they would have their own beliefs, wouldn't they? Maybe he's sold off to some other country, or maybe he's enslaved. They would all have just beliefs about what would happen. But then, so that's belief. Then there's the fact, the reality. And the reality we know, the reality is there's Joseph, Prime Minister. That's the reality in history. Doesn't matter what his father believed, what the neighbors believed about what he was doing. There was the hard-nosed fact of reality. That he was alive, that he wasn't dead. And it is very sad that Jacob suffered under a delusional belief that his son was dead. There were many different opinions and feelings, but here's truth. Truth came one day to that family. Remember, came into Jacob's life. Your son is alive. That's the statement of truth. According to Jacob, received a statement of truth. Why was it true? Because it's true because what is and what isn't. It's true because he was alive, and the statement that was brought to him, your son Joseph is alive, that theological statement about reality, it was true. And he then placed his belief in the truth. And he believed it was true, and he did something about it. He went to go and see his son. And sometimes it takes that's a revelation, the truth about reality. But if you think about that analogy, you can see that these are aspects that are very, very important. So for Christians, just to sum up, what true Christian belief is in the truth about God and all things related to him. We're not into just opinions, or we're believing the truth. These things are real and true, and we'll live and die for them. This is an amazing thing. We haven't seen Jesus physically. We haven't seen him. We're not proved. We can't go and check it out at the tomb or his second coming. But we believe this is the truth. And the source of our belief is based on the authority of the Bible and the authority of the eyewitnesses who have had true experience of the Lord's resurrection. So there you have some definitions. So when we talk about beliefs and truth, you'll know what we're talking about here. What I want to do now is to give you some pointers. It'll be a little bit of an overlap. Was that comprehensible to you? And these things, we could spend a lot of time on that, but it's very important, because most of the people in the world think, well, that's, as long as you believe that, that's fine, and we believe something different. Can't we just get on with one another? And it's just your belief. And we respect everybody else's belief. Yes, we do respect everybody's belief, but not everybody's belief is in the truth. Is true. And why is it not true? Because it doesn't conform to the facts and the revelation of God. So these things are very, very important, and I will we will repeat some of them as we go along.
Paul, may I just ask a question?
Yes.
Just in the Christian context, when one converses, you often will come across an expression, and that's in any context, Christian and non, that what a person believes may not be true, but it becomes your reality, whether Christian or not. So you have a view, that person has a view, and the two views are different, but that person's view becomes your reality because you now have to deal with it.
Yes.
How would you perhaps expound on that in the context of what you just shared?
That and it goes back to the matter of truth, and you'd have to clarify what the person is affirming about the truth, because by definition, truth is related to a fact about something. If you just make a personal that I believe in that Allah is the truth. I mean, that is a true statement about what you believe and your feelings and your belief. But whether Allah whether He is true, you're rephrasing the sentence a bit. But whether He is true objectively, that becomes the critical issue. Many people can they do believe whatever they want to believe. You can have any belief, but we are looking at the matter, how does that belief actually cash in what is real? And so we say, well, He's not actually the truth, because it's not just because I'm a Christian, but it's because it's the facts. It's what we believe, and we're going to have differences on belief of that. But you're critiquing the statement based on the reality, and that's the big thing for Christians, that we really believe in the Trinity. That's the reality. You can deny it, whatever. You can have your belief like that, but it's not a well-founded belief in the truth. It's just, I would say, it's an opinion, and Christians are doing far more than opinions. We having Christian belief is distinctly in the truth, and that's where the issue needs to go on that.
Paul, can I just say, the whole authority is based on the scriptures. If you have a guy that he comes from the church also these days that it's just man Britain, now they were a fallible man, and they made mistakes. But some people have said, this is a book. All our food is based on that book. If you don't see this, the authority of scripture, it's very difficult to argue with somebody about it.
Yes.
If you don't accept the Bible.
That is that is going back to this beliefs based on authority. We have to say our belief is not based on experience. Our belief is not based on innate logical ideas and human reason. Our belief as Christians is fundamentally based on revelation. And that revelation is found in the scriptures. So you're right, if you take away revelation, then all you're left is human opinion. And then everybody's got their own ideas. But you see, Jacob had to get a message of truth. For him to know the truth, somebody had to say, he had to have revelation. He wouldn't have, well, maybe he is alive. He had to have a word of revelation that your son is alive. And that revelation of the truth was how we take the scriptures and our convictions of faith. So let me, in the next 20 minutes, we might not finish this, but I want to give you 10 attributes of theology. Get your money's worth of, haven't come out for nothing. 10 attributes of theology, what we're trying to do, because in developing theology, it's developing ideas that are true It's developing a mind and to have beliefs that are based on the real state of affairs and about terminology and statements that correspond to those real states of affairs. Some of these I have mentioned. So this is number one, theology is truthful. I've been explaining that. Truthful. Theology is truthful. Is it two L's? One. I thought so. I have two here. Theology, so when we speaking, when Christians speak of theology, this is a foremost characteristic of what we believe. As I've said, it's not on sincerity, not on speculation. We are basing on truth. Where is due north? I have a real, if you could have your opinions on how old I am, etc. But there is a truth underlying my age and your age. And theology, as we've been saying, is about these facts of the actual state of affairs. And so this is the first thing. Number two, theology is, you ready for a big word? Propositional. Propositional. Theology is propositional. That is, the content of theology is made up of assertions and statements about the truth. It's going to be things, I believe that, etc. That's what you call a proposition. It's a statement. It's not I believe in. That's not theology. You with me? That's for the personal trust. But when we come to theology, it's about propositions, and we're expressing, that's why in the definition, we're expressing the truth. We believe that X, Y, Z. That's what we believe. That is theology. If you quickly turn in your Bibles to 1 Corinthians, and I was struck by this when I was going through I know there's bad light, how important it was for the Apostle Paul, the theology, belief that this is true. If you have a look at 1 Corinthians chapter 6, look what Paul says in verse 2. He says, just to point out this, or do you not know that? See that? Do you not know that the saints will judge the world? That's a theological statement. Then in verse 3, do you not know that? Then in verse 9, do you not know that? The unrighteous. Then in verse 15, look what he says, do you not know that? Then in verse 19.
16.
Oh, 16 as well. Thank you, I left that out. Or do you not know that? Verse 19. Or do you not know that? Sort of, Paul thinks we're a stupid church here. Don't you know, is your theology. He's expecting the Christians to know these truths and to be applying them and thinking about them. But this is what we're talking about, propositions. They're full of, theology is full of propositions, statements about what's true. And it's cognitive, it's information, but this is the stuff that we make out of our confessions. This is our credo, these things that are precious to us, these facts that save us. So theology is propositional. We mustn't be ashamed of that. And yes, in the realm of theology, we are saying that we believe that, and then we're getting into the theology. And let me say, without this we're lost. If we're just going on what we feel, or as long as we're sincere, that's irrelevant. When you're lost in the woods, you need a signboard that's going to be pointing you the way out. It's got to be a true signboard, or it's got to correspond, but not just where you feel you are. I'd be scared to go out on the sea there, because when you go far out, your navigation system is essential. I mean, to be lost without directions is dangerous. And you need to know that is you need to know propositional truth. This is essential. Theology, number 3, is universal. Wow. Well, this is also problematic. Because isn't this just what Christians believe? It's just for them. No. Theology is universal. The great truth that Christians confess is not about my truth or the preferred truth, but our truth by definition is something that is true for all. This is a very important component, an attribute of truth, and it's an attribute of theology. Truth is universal. Statement, Huncliffe or Pringle Bay has a big mountain behind it called Huncliffe. That statement is either true or false. It's true, we can know that, and it's true for people in South Carolina, it's true for people in Australia, it's true for anybody. It's a statement that is universally true. You can only make it your truth if it's everybody's truth. That's an important saying. We're like, well, it's your truth. Well, by definition, truth is universal. It must be true for everybody. Even if you say that I believe that Allah is the way, all right, that's true. Everybody, it's universal. Because everybody must believe that you say that you believe Allah is the truth. That's the universality of truth. And in the Christian faith and in Christian theology, we are speaking about things which are true for all. And there are sometimes inconvenient truths, but they are inconvenient for all as well. But we're after truth. It is theology. So what we're going to say about the Trinity or the Second Coming is true for everybody. It's not just something that we're cooking up. Theology is... The next is theology is revelational. Isn't it nice they've all got the L at the end? Truthful, propositional, revelational. And aren't you glad you don't have to put this in an exam or something and write it out? What are the attributes of theology? Now, here's the important thing. And this is very important to our theology. At the bottom of our entire endeavor, an edifice of theology, is the Word of God. God making himself known to us, and that revelation of God is the basis of what we believe about him, because he has disclosed it and revealed himself to us. We believe in Jesus Christ and in Scripture. The content of theology is the revelation of God. This is what a theology is all about. God revealing himself. Now, you see, if there will never be such a thing, but if there is a biography of Paul Hartwig, right, Paul Bruce Hartwig, because there is another Paul Hartwig in Cape Town, and around the world, I think there's, but Paul Bruce, I don't think there's a Paul Bruce Hartwig. Now, you can, somebody, maybe my wife will write a biography, etc. People could write a biography on Paul Bruce. But if I write an autobiography, that's a different, that's more authoritative, isn't it? If I write something about, and I tell you myself, I reveal to you my values and thoughts about my life and more about, it's far more authoritative than anybody's opinion, even people who know me closely. And so when we come into theology, we're talking about the Bible is God's autobiography. We're believing that. I thought of this, one day there'll be a theobiography of Paul Bruce Hartwig. In other words, that's God's book on my life. Then my autobiography is discarded because he will tell me the truth about myself. But theology is based on the revelation of God. And this is so important. We live by this, not by our opinion, not what we feel, theology lives and breathes upon the revelation, the self-disclosure that God has told us about himself. We're not thinking it up or dreaming it up. He has spoken. That's what the revelation is all about. 1 John 5:20 says, the Son of God has come and he has given us knowledge. 1 Corinthians 2 speaks about things that mind hasn't conceived and thought about, all that God has revealed to us. This is what our theology is. So, next, it is theology, are you ready for it? Is knowable. Wow. Isn't that amazing? Theology is knowable. Now, this is the convoluted topic for those of you who like words, and you'd have to, maybe Donnie could have for translation for Ria, of epistemology. What's that in Afrikaans? Epistemologie. In other words, it's the matter of how we get to know something. That's the big word, is epistemology. How we get to know certain things. So my statement about the cheeseburger, how you know it's true, you go and have a look, and by sense experience, you see with your eyes, you see, that's true, because that's the one method of how you know it. But then you question, maybe my eyes are misleading me, maybe this is an illusion, and you get into a whole lot of other issues. But let me say this, skeptics deny, there are people that deny that the finite, sinful human beings can really know the truth about an infinite, invisible, totally other God. People have questioned whether theology can do justice to the subject. God is infinite spirit. We are finite, impure beings. How can we really know him? Some radical skeptics say that theology is basically idolatry and human arrogance. Because you can't equate your little idol image in your mind with the reality of who God is, can you? Isn't it idolatry? We could think, you can understand how this could be. Our little ideas and our images of God, is it really true to how he is? He's an infinite, pure being. How can the human mind grasp of all that he is? This has often been a problem in people in writing about God. You feel a bit presumptuous to say God is. You could, hang on, before I speak for him, who am I to speak about this? Christians have thought about this, and they basically say all theological language is basically three. We can look at three things: univocal language, equivocal, and then analogical. Why didn't they tell you this years ago? So let's look at the statement, God is love. God is love. This is the stuff you get if you go to Bible school, and certainly with me, if you go do systematics in my class. I said, you've got to know about theological language. Firstly, what we talk about of using language about God univocally is basically saying that there is an equal. You can see the word equal there. There's an equality between what we think and what God is. So when we talk about God is love, the statement of love, we're saying God's love is, enough to grasp it, is like our love, like we understand love. Right? So to think about how God is love, we have an idea of love, and then we sort of project that on God and say God is like, that's what God is like. We've got our idea. So that's the one extreme. Equivocal language. Univocal, sorry, which one did? Okay, I'm on univocal language. When I speak about there is then equivocal language. Equivocal language, when we talk about God, is saying that there is a disparity between human ideas and divine ideas. Equivocal. It's totally different. So when we speak about God as love, God's love is totally different to our love. I mean, He's infinite, pure. It must be of a different order, different category. So when we speak about love, we're saying, well, God defines love totally according to His eternal pure being and revelation. It's a different order. We're speaking about it in an equivocal way. And the scripture at times says about that, my thoughts are not your thoughts. In Isaiah, my language is not your language. Says the Lord, my thoughts are not your thoughts. They're totally different. And, well, if that's true, then how can we speak meaningfully about Him? Because everything we're going to speak about is going to be just human. It's basically, as one theologian said, it's speaking about all that we're doing is we're speaking in a human speaking in a loud voice about these things, but it's not really how He is. And this is from Thomas Aquinas, goes back to Thomas Aquinas a little. And I think it's true. Actually, analogical language is how we speak about God, the infinite God, and that is, there is both a similarity and an identity. So there is a similarity, but not an identity between divine and human ideas. There's a similarity, but not an identity. This is saying there's an identity, it's totally different. Actually, it's a bit of those two. Similar. So when we say God is love, whenever we talk about God, we talk about Him analogically. So we're saying, yes, He's sort of like human love, but He's far different. And yes, He's far different, but He's not too dissimilar to how we can grasp things. And I don't think one can really improve upon that. We do, and we can then, when we speak about God, we can speak meaningfully, and not all theology is knowledgeable. We're not saying all that we say in theology is exhaustive. We don't know perfectly, but we do know adequately, but not perfectly. We can have a grasp, we can express the truth, and be sure that when we speak about God as love, it's something that is not totally alien, but it is far deeper, of course, to how we do things and speak. John Calvin said that theology is always articulate baby talk. And that is certainly true. We're talking, but babies can communicate sense, aren't they? And of course, when we talk about God, He probably, they have a laugh the way we talk about stuff, but it's always got to be like that. And the truth is that in no other discipline must the description inevitably fall so far short of the reality. Our descriptions are always falling short of the reality. It doesn't make them unreliable, but they're never fully matching up to it. Only when we get in glory will we have a full, adequate understanding of these things. Another few minutes, we might not finish this. So, He's knowable. The other thing is theology is verifiable. Maybe I'll do this later. But no, let me just do this. Theology is verifiable. That is, statements about theology should be and are capable of being judged true or false. Yes, you can ask us about this. I'm not saying I just believe this and please don't challenge me or ask me about it. I'm not sure if it... No. Provide a reason for what we believe. If we are not able to verify what we believe and provide a reason, that means that everybody is equally valid. Because if it's just what you believe, then then if everybody has no reason to think that what they believe is wrong. We must provide reasons and evidence for our views or opinions and interpretations. This is why the Bible says in 1 John 4, test the spirits to see if they are from God. Put things to the test. Theology has to be verifiable. Give me the basis for your belief. This is important. I think the last one for this evening is theology is reasonable. Theology is reasonable. Now, there was an early church theologian and writer had some weird beliefs called Tertullian. Any of you heard of Tertullian? There's a few, and he was very against anything of the human mind in theology, and said, he believes because it is absurd. That's why he believes. What does Jerusalem have to do with Athens? Was a famous statement of, what does the revelation of God have to do with the human reason of human people? And one of the important issues in the history of theology is, what is the role of human reason in thinking about God, thinking of our mind, and using our mind in this whole particular matter? Well, all theological assertions are clothed in the dress of reason. In theology, we are expressing things in reasonable language. We're giving verifiable evidence. This is very, very important. We're making coherent statements. We're making statements of truth. We're putting things together reasonably. And reason is an important attribute of theology. But, to cut a long thing short, reason has to be chastened or put in its place. And this is a very important thing. Reason has to have a servant role in the Christian faith and not a dominant role. It has maybe a left-handed role in faith, has the right hand, but reason has a left-handed role in theology. In other words, what we can say is that statements of theology must be reasonably put together. They shouldn't contradict one another. No theological statement will say that the world always existed and the world had a beginning. Wonderful belief. Bless you if you believe that. That's idiotic. You've contradicted yourself. The law of contradiction. You can't say something isn't at the same time in the same way. It must make coherent sense. It's not stupid statements. All theology should be reasonably put and comprehensible. But we've got to remember that reason always plays a servant role. In other words, a good way to put it, reason has a ministerial role, not a magisterial role. Magisterial role means what takes the predominance. Reason has a ministerial role. What has the magisterial role is this: revelation is what our faith is all about. Reason comes in as a secondary thing to then work with the truths of revelation, put them in order and make more sense of them for us, but it should not dominate. For example, as we will see about Jesus being God and man. Christians believe that he's God and man in one person. That's not produced by reason, it's produced by revelation. Reason comes in to help us sort of try to make sense of that and think about it in the light of the evidence of Scripture. Reason has a ministerial role. And actually, human reason never functions outside of a framework of basic beliefs. All human reason functions within some bigger reality. And likewise in theology. What is king is revelation. Reason comes in to serve it. It has a ministerial role in these things. And so we see this throughout Paul's letters. We see when Paul says in, for example, Colossians, he says, if don't you know you have been united to Christ? If you've been raised up with Christ. Colossians chapter 3 verse 1. If you've been raised up with Christ, keep seeking the things above where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Now, you see where reason and revelation comes in there. The fact that you as a Christian have been raised with Christ and seated with him is pure. You can't work that out from your human reason. All the vital truths of our faith are not born by human reason. They are reasonable, but they're not produced by reason. They're based on revelation. And we live on these revelation truths. We live on, wow, my life is in Christ. But see how reason comes in as a handmaid, as a left-hand help. It says, therefore, if you are, you see Paul's reasoning, if you are raised with Christ, so and so should be your logical deduction. If you're raised with Christ, therefore, seek the things above. Live in a different way. Find your life in him. He's bringing in human reason. And you will find Scripture is full of these reason and revelation in that type of relationship. It struck me, the last thing maybe I'll say, it struck me, if it's a statement of truth, the last thing I'll say, or is it my belief? Let me say this. It struck me the other day, the first verse of the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Do you know what? The first idea in the Bible is from human reason. In the beginning. If you think about it, the in the beginning is an idea in the human mind of cause and effect. There's a beginning. I mean, you don't need the Bible to tell you about the idea of a beginning. But the Bible opens with a statement of reason. In the beginning, like you read that, okay, that's sort of back then, cause and effect going back. In the beginning, and then we have God created the heavens and the earth. Then you're into revelation. How did he create everything? How do you know that he created everything? But you into revelation. That he, the divine being, create. You wouldn't know that unless it was revealed. You could think that this world, like some philosophers think, is eternal. It's always been there. But that there was a beginning and that God brought it into being is a wonderful coupling of how reason serves revelation. And that happens throughout the Bible. So don't despise human reason, thinking through your faith, but make sure that your logical processes are operating upon the axioms or upon the truths of Christian revelation. Don't you know that your bodies are temple of the Holy Spirit? Paul says. That's revelation. Therefore is reason. Therefore, don't join yourself to a prostitute. He's saying, or live in a way that makes sense when keeping with the revelation. And theology is inherently reasonable, but it has a ministerial and not a magisterial role. Very important for living with the Lord. I've given you enough.